Welcome to Life with Jason, episode 109, to love yourself and others. And welcome to the winter wonderland once again. We're here in spring in Alberta, and yeah, I woke up to fresh snow, but that's okay. Any moisture is better than no moisture. But what does that have to do with today's topic of loving yourself and others? I've talked about this a few times, and I often still bring up that question because what does it really look like when we, to love ourselves? And what does it really look like to love others? It's something that I've been wrestling with for quite some time. So join me. So as I go on today's walk, messing around with gloves and stuff like that, you can hear the birds chirping in the background. I got a new microphone, so hopefully the sound quality will be quite a bit better than all my previous videos. We're on this journey. It's on this journey of life. Just as I'm journeying through my land right now, walking the paths that I've walked hundreds of times. And the one question that I shared in the intro is, what does it look like to love yourself and to love others? See, that is one of the great commandments, or the golden rule, as many want to look at it as that such, right? The golden rule is to love God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your soul, and to love others as you love yourself. And many people see the idea of, love your neighbor, and they pour all this energy into loving their neighbor, and they neglect themselves. And that's been really challenging, because in today's world as well, we're seeing a lot of these things come up, especially in relationships and marriages and stuff like that, where we're seeing marriages fall apart because one or the other partner in the marriage says they're no longer happy in the marriage. And so they want to leave to find greener pastures, so to speak, in another relationship, because they're no longer happy or satisfied with the relationship they're in. And we're always looking externally for things to make us happy, to make us feel good, to make us feel loved. When the real solution has to come from within ourselves. And even, you can say to a large extent, looking to the external of God, looking to God for our source of love, to be validated through our sense that God loves us. And I'm not wanting to take away from that, because I believe that is instrumental and foundational for love. Because if we, like I've mentioned in other videos, if we're to believe that God is the epitome of love, true love, unconditional love, that loves us no matter who we are, what we do, what we've done. Just loves us fully. But it's hard for us to accept that. It's hard for us to understand that because we see such frailty in love in today's world. And even myself, I struggle with it because so often we put conditions on love. We put conditions on how we respond to people. Oh, well, if you do this, this, and this, you'll make me happy. Oh, well, if you do this, this, and that, then I can love you. It may not be spoken outwards, but it is implied. It is part of the messaging and how we react and how we respond to people. So how do we change that? How do we change the way that we love people? How do we change how we love ourselves? It's not an easy task. It's not an easy question. Because many of us think that we're giving out love, and to the best of our ability we are. But it may not be received that way from those around us. So how do we change that? How do we show ways to express love to others, and how do we learn how to accept love from others? Because that's another problem that a lot of us have, is learning how to accept love from others. So again, I come back to the idea of loving yourself. For me, we cannot overlook that part of the golden rule or the great commandment when it says, as yourself, to love your neighbor as yourself. I've talked about this a lot with the idea of how we speak to ourselves, the negative speak. Oh, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I can't do that. Whatever it is, whatever the messaging is that you tell yourself every day. Subconsciously, mostly. Because for years, it's been programmed into you from all sorts of different outside influences. So how do you flip the messaging so that you have a true sense of value for yourself? I keep asking these questions because it's something that I struggle with every day. You know, when I look forward to what I'm moving forward with in Lifting the Soul Ministries, there's a part of me that is like, yeah, I have a valuable message to share. I have a valuable gift to give to others, to find value within themselves, because that is ultimately my true hope and desire, is that as I walk alongside others and I bring a team of people within my newfound organization, that they will be able to help others to find the true value within themselves for who they are. When I'm still sometimes struggling to find that value as well. So I hide. I tend to shrink back to, well, I'm going to procrastinate on this for a little bit. I'm going to just relax and watch a couple of TV shows, stream a couple of TV episodes, which then turns into 4 or 5 TV episodes or show episodes, right? Like, those are all signs of something there that is like still buried deep in the layers. There's an underlying fear. There's an underlying sense of unworthiness. There's so many things that I can put into that. And so when we look into our lives, when we start to look at how we view ourselves and stuff like that, and it also comes into judgment of others and things, because oftentimes when we are judging others, oh, look at that person and what they're doing, we're actually pointing out things within ourselves that we don't like about ourselves. We try to offload the things that are, we try to offload the things we don't like about ourselves onto others in a negative, unhealthy way to try to puff ourselves up. When we can really truly find and discover and realize truly and heartfeltly our true self-value, and our intrinsic value for just being who we are, not who others think we are, that makes a big difference. And that's something that I've been really working towards, is not getting that, not needing. I mean, do I accept validation from others? Of course, it always feels good, because other people validating you is a way, and you accepting that is a way of loving yourself. You don't have to become pompous about it, but you can accept the fact that people appreciate who you are and the gifts that you offer. You can accept that you have intrinsic value that has been a blessing to others. That's a form of loving yourself. And the interesting thing is a lot of people, and there's a lot of messaging out there that you don't want to become vain and all this other kind of stuff. And I understand that, because there is a difference. You can become so self-absorbing in love for yourself that you have zero disregard for others in your life. And that's not healthy either. It's actually quite destructive. But finding that sense of value within yourself is, I believe, essential to being able to love others. And I've been sharing this as well, because if you're constantly telling yourself negative messaging from yourself, and you're constantly degrading yourself, constantly putting yourself down, how do you view other people? If your love for yourself is conditional based on how you perform or how you do things in life, who you think you can attract or whatever, if it's all about the external stuff while you're hating the inside stuff, how can you love others for who they are? And what does loving others really look like? Unconditional love. The closest example, the only real example that I can really think of, is a biblical story, the story of Jesus. That's the one that I'm most familiar with. And I'm sure there's others that people can share and have knowledge of. But I think of Jesus and what it was for him to love unconditionally. I think of all the stories of the people that he interacted with. Did you know that he did not condemn any one person? He may have chastised them in the sense of correcting them, but he never condemned them. And he was always willing to give a helping hand to whoever was in need. He never turned a single person down who was asking for help. Even people who were against him. And you're thinking, Jason, well, where's an example of that? Well, think of the Garden of Gethsemane. The night he was taken to be judged by the Pharisees and by Pilate. They came, and as they were grabbing a hold of him to take him away, one of his disciples pulled out a sword and struck one of the captors and cut his ear. And what did Jesus do? He said, hold on, put that sword away. And he reached out and he healed that person's ear. Right there. He showed love to his enemies. Unconditional love to his enemies. He knew what he was in for. He knew what they were bringing him for. He knew what the end result of why they were there. And yet he chose to love them anyways and show compassion to them. I think of the examples of the castaways in society. You know, in today's world, in our modern world, in our big cities, we have a lot of homeless people. And a lot of these homeless people, you could probably consider to be like lepers back in Jesus' time. Because not a lot of people want anything to do with these people. They may not have a skin disease that can be contagious like the lepers did, but we treat them as such. We look down at them because of their situation. And I do realize there's a lot of homeless people out there that choose to be that way. They've chosen to allow themselves to fall down into that situation. They have chosen to not love themselves enough to take care of their basic needs. Yes, they did allow themselves to do that. A lot of them are making conscious choices to live that way. And so we can we can choose to look at them as victims, or we can choose to look at the situation and its reality for what it is. And in a sense, they are a victim to themselves. And so yes, there are people that are compassionate, that help them and all that other kind of stuff. And I encourage that, because I do want to see a better world where all are healthy spiritually, mentally, physically, and are able to enjoy life to their fullest. But that's just the thing. There's so many examples out there of people who don't love themselves, and therefore they struggle to love others. And they don't love themselves so much that even when people do reach out with compassion to help them and give them a lifting hand to try to pull them out of their situation, they can't. Because the person is so deeply buried in their own self-hating, self-loathing, that they can't even accept the generosity and the compassion of others that are wanting to help them out. And so they don't accept the love because they can't love themselves. And then they have a hard time to love others. Or if they do, they have so much hate and loathing for themselves that they will help out other fellow homeless people. I've seen that before. Which is actually quite an amazing thing. I've heard stories of how a homeless person will give their last bit of something to another person because that person needs it and they've got nothing. So there is the possibility to show acts of love outside of loving yourself. And I do believe that comes from the sense that that's what we were designed and created to be a part of, is this universal love. And as I've been learning about this and as I've been walking this journey, I've discovered as well that to truly love yourself is also an act of worship in loving God. And you're like, well, how does that relate? How does that correlate? Well, if God is love, and He created you out of love. There's other verses in the Bible that, from Psalms, right? You're fearfully and wonderfully made. I knew you before you were in the womb. Meaning that God poured a part of Himself into you. When we look back in Genesis at the creation of man, man was created in God's image. We're the only creation that the Bible speaks about that says that we were created in God's image. Now that's a whole other topic, but when you think about it, when we hate ourselves, when we call ourselves names, when we look down on ourselves, we're not appreciating what God gave us. We're not appreciating God because God created who we are. He put us here for a reason, for a purpose. He created us because He wanted us to flourish. And so when we look at it that way, and we realize that to love ourselves in a healthy way, which means we're taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of our basic needs, we're taking care of washing ourselves regularly, brushing our teeth, taking care of our health. We're not neglecting our physical needs. We're not neglecting our emotional needs. We're not neglecting our spiritual needs. We're not neglecting our physical needs, our mental needs. We're looking for ways that we can live a healthy, well-meaning life. It means that we look at ourselves in the mirror and we say, you know what? You're beautiful. You're valuable. I love you. You know, there might be some things that I can improve. There might be some things that I kind of question. But you're still a beautiful person and I still love you. Unconditionally. And from there, that opens us up to see others from a different light. It opens us up to be able to see people for who they are, not for what they are or what they've done. We see them as just a simple human being, like each and every one of us, that has made mistakes, like every one of us, who may be living a life that we may not agree with in this moment. But they're still a valuable human being, worthy of love, worthy of being acknowledged, worthy of being accepted, worthy of being part of a family. And I truly believe that when we look at things from this perspective, it will start to change the way we perceive ourselves. When we learn to find the value within ourselves, we're not looking for it from others because we know it intrinsically. Does it mean that we no longer acknowledge love from others? Does it mean that we turn away? No. You see, when we're not looking for validation from others and we see them for who they are and we love them for who they are, then maybe we won't be ending marriages because, well, I'm not happy with them anymore. We might be looking for ways to solve that problem. Instead of finding happiness because this other person brings a certain amount of joy to you, it might change. You see, nobody's going to be able to give you happiness 100% of the time, 100% of the time. We're all people that walk and struggle through things in life. And if we're constantly looking for others to be our fulfillment, then we're going to be always looking and always dropping one for the other. It's just like accumulating stuff, accumulating toys, as people put it. Because, oh, well, this toy will make me happy. Only to have it for a little while and then it sits on a shelf collecting dust because you've found the next thing that brings you temporary joy or temporary happiness. A lot of today's world and the messaging that we've received from a very young age is all about looking for the external validation, the external, what's going to make me happy next. When it has to come from within. And I believe that God lives within us. I believe He's a part of us. I believe He's a part of all of creation. And so when I'm saying within us, it's not just a self thing. It's about God being within us as well, and understanding that there alone is a huge thing. Because when we're looking within for what God has to say to us about who we are. On top of the fact that we appreciate and love ourselves. When we can truly fully understand that, then the outer stuff doesn't matter as much. When our partner or our spouse or somebody else in our lives is going through a slump, instead of saying, oh, well, they're no longer satisfying my needs, so I'm going to leave them, it becomes, oh my, this person is struggling right now. What can I do to help them? What can I do to lift them up in this time? How can I continue to love them as they walk down this path? Because there might not be much that I can do at this time, but just be there for them as they walk through that. Instead of running away and saying, well, this person's no longer making me happy. This is a challenging topic because so much messaging is all about the external validation, the external whatever. And I know that we got to learn how to love unconditionally. We got to learn how to love ourselves unconditionally. We got to learn to love others unconditionally. And it's not, and it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't. It doesn't have to be difficult. So I'm going to leave it at that because, yeah, it's just where things are at right now. And it's just something that's constantly on my heart because it is something I struggle with every day. And so I'm on my journey, as are you. Until next time, much love.